Great Britain is in a state of war with Germany. It was officially declared at the Foreign Office last night. Germany's decision to invade France through neutral Belgium led to the British declaration of war on Germany on the 4th of August 1914. The countries of the British Empire and its dominions, including South Africa, were automatically at war too. They could not remain neutral. For the people of rural South Africa, a country more than 5,500 miles away from Britain, how distant and irrelevant the war in Europe might have seemed. Yet many considered that the war was theirs, as citizens of the British Empire.
The pictures that the newspapers drew of men doing battle in the trenches, in the mud and the cold of France, fascinated and horrified me. I felt growing in me the conviction that I should go away and help in some way.
Feelings ran high amongst others, reluctant to support an empire that often denied them the most basic human rights and dignity. To add to the injustice of their treatment, the 1913 Land Act had evicted them from farms that had been their homes for generations. Black South Africans were only allowed to farm 13% of their own land. The rest was reserved for white settlers.
We are no friends of the whites. When you, the whites, are in a fix, you begin to recognize us as your friends. The war is not ours, but yours.
However, their representatives in Parliament, the South African Native National Congress, immediately affirmed their loyalty to the King and Empire and promised to suspend all criticism of the government for the duration of the war. They hoped that their status would improve as a result of this, that Britain would not abandon African interest in South Africa. As their leader, J.L. Dube, said later,
"We were not loyal because our treatment was good in South Africa, but because we wanted to show that we were loyal and that we were deserving of fair and just treatment."
At the time, they were given grounds for hope. F.S. Malan, acting Minister of Native Affairs, met a Congress delegation in 1914.
You have taken a very wise step at the outbreak of this war, which will be likely to impress Parliament to consider your cause sympathetically.
In the early years of the war, some 54,000 black South Africans served in campaigns across the African continent. Few of them were allowed to fight as they would have wished. It was feared it would upset the balance of society.
To teach and encourage the use of the rifle by native races may result in trouble, if not disaster. We will recruit them for that class of employment that is exclusively or ordinarily suited to natives, such as drivers, leaders of oxen, and general laborers.
And this is how we were used, with the idea of releasing more white men for active service. South Africa was not alone in this. Although there were black combat units when America joined the war in 1918, the majority of black men were relegated to the role of laborers.
The demand for African manpower increased dramatically at the end of 1916, after the Somme offensive resulted in such catastrophic losses on the Western Front.
Without delay, the South African Native Labour Corps was formed, with the purpose of recruiting 10,000 men to send overseas to work in the docks and forests, dig trenches, and mend the supply lines for those who were fighting. Again, a few sections of white society feared that this would pose a serious threat to their dominant position in South Africa.
We cannot profess any great enthusiasm for the government's proposal to send 10,000 natives to Europe. We are not at all sure that the experience will be good for the men themselves. The natives will find themselves in a totally different environment, and it will be surprising if they do not return to South Africa spoiled.
To allay these fears, it was agreed that the men would be housed in closed compounds to avoid any social contact with Europeans. For many of us, in this respect at least, our new lives overseas would be little different. This was exactly how we, as black workers, were treated in the South African diamond and gold mines.
Following appeals for volunteers in local newspapers, recruitment was generally undertaken by local magistrates, who enlisted the services of tribal chiefs, who in turn encouraged their young men, some of whom were pleased to go.
I have a desire to travel and learn, to see for myself what European civilization is like. And I have great hopes that when I have served my country well, the government will show its gratitude by ending the oppression of black people in South Africa.
Some of the chiefs were put under pressure to provide men.
We were recruited by force. At least every house had to produce one young man. Our mothers were crying as we went.
So, in practice, many black South Africans did not, in the true sense of the word, volunteer.